You like it?
Everything's going to be perfect. We've planned it all. We've thought of everything. What is it? What's wrong?
Daisy's coming.
Is she coming tonight?
Apparently so.
She wasn't invited.
And she's coming anyway. Oh, brave.
She's an alcoholic.
You know what pisses me off, Kyle? I get drunk at one party and she tries to cut me out of their life.
Please be civil.
That's my place card.
Here you go.
All right, that's enough.
Hey!
They said that this one wouldn't be like the last time.
Blame is the enemy of positive change.
What is going on?
Answer me!
Or what?
Oh, you really want to find out?
Get it done. All I'm trying to do is have a nice dinner with my closest friends and things are getting out of hand.
You show up here uninvited on a mission to make everyone as miserable as you are.
I've been too busy running around this stupid farm trying to get someone to kiss me.
You know what?
Everybody be quiet! I need a drink.
Me too.
Hey, I'm normally better prepared, but it's 10 o'clock in the morning in the UK, so there you go. I'll use that as my excuse. So I'm guessing you're in Australia, I'm hoping.
I am, yes.
Good. I'm hoping that because a lot of the people I've been speaking to have been in the US, and if you were in the US and it was 10 a.m. where I am, then that would mean it's a stupid time of the hour for yourself. So I'm glad you're in the future.
Yeah.
So normally I start my morning with a nice cup of tea, bit of toast, but this morning I started it by watching the craziest dinner party I've ever seen.
Great.
That was crazy. I always like to go into films not knowing anything about them whatsoever, which is
Brilliant.
exactly what I did with an ideal host. And I'm
That's what-
I'm so glad that I did that. How do you
Yeah.
pitch the film to people without giving the plot away? Let's hear your pitch, or do you just give some of the plot away?
No, I try and keep it as vague as possible because I'm with you. I think knowing as little as possible going into this into films, especially this one, is the best way to view it. I always say this is a film about a woman named Liz who is trying to impress her friends by throwing the perfect dinner party, and an unexpected guest turns the evening into chaos with potentially apocalyptic consequences.
That works. I mean, that pitch could work on several different levels, having seen the film, who is the guest, all sorts of stuff. So even things like, watching the film, it's a case of, the creators of this film must love this film that is one of my favorites of all time, but I can't even mention that because that gives plot elements away as well. There's so much love for, I can't even say what genres in some cases. It's a very difficult one to talk about without plot, but the genres that it lovingly tips its hat to, you must definitely be a fan of.
Very much so. Yeah, we were watching a lot of those films as we were writing and coming up with it, and it definitely infused into the film, into the spirit of what we were trying to do. It's interesting. It premiered in Perth at Revelation Film Festival, which is just my hometown's film festival, and thankfully I was able to just put it in as a comedy, and that caused quite a few surprises from people that I knew that watched it. But this time, Grimmfest is a horror film festival, so there is going to be some expectations there as to what the kind of content is that's going to happen. So I'll be interested to see the reaction that it gets with a different set of expectations going into it.
Because that's the thing with some festivals, isn't it? Especially if it's a genre film festival, be it a science fiction festival or a horror festival or a comedy festival. The moment the film comes on, they go, right, this needs to be that genre. And your film covers lots of different genres, so it isn't just one.
Yeah.
Which I loved about it. It's, it's perfectly seamed, so you've got elements of comedy, and obviously with it being in Grimmfest, there's horror elements in there, and there's definitely those in there. There's also other elements in there, it was a wonderful casserole of all these different things, and it's really difficult to talk about without ruining the plot. So where did you assemble this amazing cast? Because they are all perfect.
The cast is, I think, all of them except for our lead actor are members of an improv comedy troupe that I'm a part of.
Wow.
That I play music for on the weekends. They do a show here in Perth every week, and they've been working together, improvised comedy for some of them for a good 15, 16 years now. Just knowing that if I set aside some time during the holidays, I'd be able to maybe ask some of them was the dream. So, and I'm so grateful for all of them for giving up their time. Essentially, this was a no budget film, so everyone just kind of did what they could for free. And I'm so grateful that they did that. Yeah, they're so much fun to work with, and especially our lead actress. She's just such a wonderful talent, and I'm really keen to try and get her out into the world a bit more because she's just wonderful.
And that was going to be one of my questions as well, because I don't write questions down, but I'll write things down and go, yeah, make sure I cover that. And it was, is the film improv'd or was it fully scripted? And you've obviously answered that to a certain level. So, I mean, you could tell that all this cast are natural with the rapid fire dialogue, which was an absolute treat to watch.
The rapid fire dialogue is my writing partner, Tyler, who wrote the script and wrote all the dialogue. He writes a very rapid fire dialogue, and that's a style that we both like. And they all just had the ability, like they just knew instantly the tone of any given scene, and they would just do it, and they make it sound as natural as possible, and they were free to add in their own spins on things, and we just played around a lot, really. Well, given the time constraints we had. Yeah.
What was the sort of shooting schedule? So obviously it's a low budget film, which obviously puts a lot of not necessarily pressure, but it puts limits on what you can do, because even if you've got people working for a really low amount or free, you don't want to keep them for weeks and weeks and weeks, because you appreciate the fact that they're busy and they're giving the time. So what was the shooting schedule for an Ideal Halls?
The way it worked was I rented a farmhouse from a friend, from a high school buddy, for 2 weeks, and we shot for 13 days, mainly just in the afternoons and evenings.
Yeah.
And the people that were available came down, and as they were no longer required from the script, they would then go home until we whittled it down to just a few people left. So we didn't have a crew, really. We didn't have a big cast. It was just us staying in pretty much the house that you see.
But it was a wonderful cast, and I do like the way that probably makes sense when you were saying when people are no longer needed. There are lots of scenes where people are, maybe outside or in different rooms of the house, and you could obviously shoot that at different times and then piece it all together into this wonderful jigsaw.
Yeah, scheduling it was tricky. The way we did it was I booked this house just before the Perth Fringe Festival, which is when all of the actory friends that I have will be out there performing shows in the wonderful Perth summer in February. So I booked it in January when I figured they'd all be home and preparing. And the great thing about improv performers is they don't have to rehearse their shows. they don't have to rehearse like lines. They don't have to learn things, because we just show up on the day and perform. So they were all around and available, and so I took advantage of that. I abused that privilege, basically.
Why not? It all shows on screen. It doesn't show you abusing facts on screen, but the work that you've all put in does show on screen. It was an absolute pleasure to watch, because it's like, I've been watching quite a few films that Grimmfest have been showing this week, and I did Fright Fest last week covering a lot of their stuff, and you will, obviously, because it's a horror film festival, you do tend to get a lot of horrors, and some of them are similar, and it's an absolute pleasure when you see one that's very, very different, which an Ideal Host is most certainly different. We've been to dinner parties kind of like that, not fully like that, obviously, but you know, the awkward dinner parties where people don't always get on and people say things they shouldn't, and it's really cringeworthy when you're at the dinner party, but to watch somebody else having that dinner party, it's crazily entertaining.
Yeah, definitely. We like those kinds of comedies as well. We had some friends tell us some horror stories from being at. It was actually a makeup artist friend of ours that was talking about a crew party that she was at, and it just was the most awkward, horrifying story I've heard. I was like, oh, we need to somehow like leverage this. We need to use this in a film somewhere. So the idea of making something just as a bunch of friends with no money, just basically trying out filmmaking for the first time, making something with like a single location and a small cast that we could play around with was basically all we were trying to do. And yeah,
it worked. It did
Yeah.
definitely work. It feels very, I mean, you could put that on in a theater as well. There's obviously some bits that might be tricky to put on in a theater, but
well,
it feels very stage play like, which I like.
it's interesting you say that because Tyler and I have been writing music theatre for a decade.
Yeah.
And writing fringe shows, and that's what we've been doing. So I've been working in post-production in the film industry for about for over a decade now. But on the side, this is what we were doing for fun, and writing musicals and plays and performing and playing music. And we really wanted to transition that into film because film was actually both of our first love. And I think we'd kind of gotten a bit tired of theatre and doing what we could there, and wanted to see if we could translate some of the things we'd learned into the film world, which is why we gave ourselves the same, basically the same budget and writing schedule and work ethic that we had for a musical theatre piece, and just applied it to this film. So instead of performing at Fringe that year, we shot a film.
And you've performed it to people sitting near Manchester in the UK, and you know, people who would normally be going to the actual Grimmfest event and watching it in an auditorium, but you've been performing it to different continents, which that's going to be kind of cool.
Oh, it's a couple of the shows we've done, we have toured internationally, and it's such a pain. It's such a big effort, and it costs so much money to be able to have a film, which is basically just a file that you can send off. You don't have to worry about scheduling all of your actors and shipping over all of your props and carting 17 instruments on the tubes to Brighton. Like that's a dream. So yeah, it is, especially this year with COVID hitting and so many festivals doing online. It's been really interesting just kind of putting it out there and then slowly getting trickle back feedback from people. You don't have that immediate reaction from an audience, but I have been starting to hear things from the first festival it was at. So yeah, it's been interesting.
How were you? Were you at all nervous about reading reviews and stuff initially? Because I spoke to another filmmaker and said, if somebody reviews your film, do you instantly go, right, I'm going to go read that? Or do you get a little bit nervous, go, let me look? And then once you realize they are all good, as well they should be, you then find it a bit easier to do that.
I have been reading everything I can possibly find on this film. I mean, it's my first film. I'm super keen and super eager. And also at the same time, I know it's my first film, and I am well aware of the kind of scrappy qualities it has, and the very rough around the edges.
Really? See, I will touch upon that because I didn't see any. So we'll move back to that in a minute. I don't need to know what you think they are, but I genuinely, and I do watch hundreds and hundreds of films a year, from $300 million budget ones to films that cost a couple of £1,000 or dollars or whatever. I did not notice anything scrappy or rough at all about the film.
So I'm well. Having said that, I feel like I have like my own problems and issues with the film. Just just in terms of like, you know, grand ideas that you have at the start of things that just become impractical with time and budget, and things that you think you could have done better, or things that you've learnt. I basically learnt so much making a film about that has the particular challenges that this one did, and I'm just so keen to make another one. And so reading reviews that might be harsh, I'm like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think though, you know, somebody could make the most perfect film ever, and you will always get some film reviewers that go, yeah, but look at that bit. And they will always, because I think there seems to be a certain type of reviewer out there, and I think the internet has quite a lot of them in clusters, especially on social media, where they feel that they need to be a critic rather than a reviewer. I hate the word critic. People call me a critic. I'm like, no, I just watch films and I love movies. I watch them and then talk about them. I don't critique them, because I know how difficult it is to make a film. I know how difficult it is to make a low-budget film, and you will find that most of the people, for all of the people who critique films, go, look at this, look at that, look at these rough edges, blah, 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 probably never even made a film. So until they realize how difficult it is, they need to just shush a little bit and enjoy the dinner parties and enjoy the wine glasses and the place cards and that whole and it's a non-spoilery scene at the beginning where she's setting up the dinner party, and then she goes, I don't like that. And it's like, she set the whole thing up, so then she sets it up again, and you're like, seriously. And then again, you're like, how many different sets of dinner plates have you got, woman? That's a lot. I want to see inside those cupboards.
That was that was a crazy day of shooting as well. I kind of regret putting in as many montages in as I did.
I liked it. I think maybe two more might have been like, okay, enough for the montages, but I think you did get the number right, because I remember watching, I think it was like 3, wasn't it? I think. And I got to third one, I'm like, we don't need another dinner plate, and there wasn't one, so you'd got that number nailed.
Great.
So what was the most difficult, because you mentioned challenges, what was one of the lessons that you learned that you will use on your next film? And I'm really hoping there is a next film. Please make another one.
Yes. Well, I think the biggest lesson that we learned was you shouldn't make a film without a producer, without someone that can help organize things. Okay. Because if that's not your strong suit, then when you find you're having to do producery type things whilst you're wanting to just focus on directing, or just focus on finishing the script, or just focus on trying to get a cast together because you're shooting in 2 days, things like that. I think the biggest lesson I learned was you need a producer.
So it sounds like you were doing at least a minimum of 4 roles all at once there. So yes.
Yes. I even had a cinematographer that was going to shoot the film for me, and an assistant that we're going to shoot, and then we're going to shoot it on a more expensive, bigger cameras with a bunch of different rigs and stuff. And they unfortunately had to pull out a week before. So I ended up just having to grab my DSLR and do as good a job as I could.
So six titles now. You're doing well. This is,
Well, yeah. If we put in the credits every role that everyone did, it would go as long as a Marvel movie. But like, we thought that would be really lame just to see everyone's name popping up 50 times. So we just decided to leave all those roles uncredited and just put down one specific role for each person, because really this is the kind of film where everybody did everything. Hopefully you get that sense when you watch it.
You can see that everybody, because some films you watch and you go, yeah, they probably just met each other like a couple of days ago and did the lines and put the film together and stuff. But instantly, all the people all around the dinner table, they look like they've known each other for years. They look like there's a lot of backstory, and obviously there is, because they've all helped set dress the place and tidy the farmhouse up and
Yeah, exactly.
Do the name cards and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, it was a big job jumping from theatre to this, because in theatre, if you want to have that many characters, you just put on a different hat, and that's all you need.
Like you were doing, making the film, different hat, producer, cinematographer.
Yeah,
Yep.
I did have many hats, literal hats as well. It was very hot when we shot, but making a film is not the same as making theatre, in that you actually need all the props, and you need the cast to be the actual things that they are. You can't just like pretend to be a woman and then be a man and then be a baby and then and switch, as that's what we did in our musicals. And organizing costumes and props when we're just used to black box theatre, where we would just mime and improvise, all of that stuff. That was a bit of a learning curve. We should definitely learn to have a period for pre-production rather than writing the script and finishing it a few days before principal photography starts.
Yeah, but then it's all fresh in everybody's mind, I guess. But it's sitting watching the film. It took me an hour and a half, so I don't see all the pressures and the challenges that you guys and girls have gone into. So I get the easy bit. I just go, right, play. Wow, that was fun. I don't ever want to go to that dinner party, because I kind of want to go to some of it. I don't want to go to the whole dinner party, which obviously makes sense once people have watched the film, but they do look like a fun bunch of people.
Yeah, we do like to write characters that slightly grating characters. I think characters that can be annoying but fun to watch.
Daisy, perhaps. Yep.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
But so, what was the most fun scene to shoot, or did you not have time to go? I'm enjoying that one now. You were too busy with your multi hats, but which one springs to mind? If it's a non-spoiler one, of course, or try and say it so it's a non-spoiler.
I suppose actually a lot of the spoilery, like the last 10 minutes of the film, was, by that stage, by the time you get to the madness that's going on there, we were literally we were so delirious and I was exhausted, and we were just running around in the mud, in the gravel, in the heat, grabbing stuff as quickly as we could. And I had no idea what was going on. It wasn't until like months and months later that I could even bring myself to look at what I had shot and put it together to see if it would even work as a film. But looking back on it, like, it's always looking back on it in retrospect. It was so much fun. Yeah.
And
actually, shooting in the lake, shooting in the water at nighttime. That was. I wanted to do it as quickly as possible, because I was very aware I don't want my actors to have to go through physically uncomfortable things. But the water was so warm, which is bad because it means there's a lot of creatures in there.
Yes.
But it was actually really nice in that.
And it was dark as well, wasn't it? So it's warm and dark. It's like, just get out of there. There may be things lurking around in there.
We had absolutely no lighting whatsoever, so we were just relying on moonlight and like a light from the house that was just like a floodlight from a hardware store, with a couple of extension cables. That's our lighting budget. And didn't leave much room there for seeing what was going on, but it was fun. Yeah.
Did anybody shoot any behind the scenes, or are there any making ups? Because I would love to see that, because it looks like it was great.
I think there's a couple of clips on people's iPhones that they've shot, and a couple of photos, but there wasn't really. We didn't think about any of that. I guess the way we shot this, we didn't even really tell friends and family that we were doing this. Yeah. It was something that we wanted to have no pressure on completing to any certain degree. And I told the cast, like, this may never get finished. This is just an exercise, and hopefully, at most, it'll be like a good piece for our show reel
Okay.
for acting or for directing in the future. Just like we'll use this as a stepping stone. So it was only really right towards the end of editing and putting it all together that we thought, oh, maybe we may as well just enter it into some festivals and see what they think. So that's been pleasantly surprising.
So,
Yeah.
so the film geek side of you, because you mentioned you love movies, and obviously you do because you've made one. So you're making this thing just as part of show reels and a little bit of an experiment. But now it's going into film festivals across the world. People are watching it. People are reviewing it. People are liking it. How does that feel?
It's amazing and very unexpected, and we've done this with our theatre shows as well, where we've done one or two, and then people love it, and then the pressure seems to be on afterwards to then live up to the expectations of the ones we've done before. And so I'm probably more nervous about going forward from here because, we don't have a solid foundation for we didn't have a solid plan for going forward from here and like what our next project is. We have like 20 ideas and we want to make all of them.
You can make all of them. You'll find that one will it's like a horse race, I guess, where one will slightly edge in front of the others, and you go, well, I guess that one will be the next one. That's usually what happens, yeah.
Yeah, that's how this one happened as well. We were discussing the different ideas and saying, well, which one's the most viable? Which one are we the most excited about? And we kept developing a couple more, and then we just kept coming back to this one and adding more to it. And it did change quite radically from the early ideas to what ends up on screen. But it's essentially, the same basic premise.
And what's there's a couple of things as well. Is with it being a low budget film, I'm trying to think of the phrase without there's makeup effects. Let's go for makeup effects. The makeup effects in the film are fantastic. Who did those? You're going to say you, aren't you? It's another one for you.
This is a tricky one to answer, actually, because we had ideas for certain gags, certain gore set pieces, I guess, in mind when we were writing it. And one of our close friends is a professional prosthetics makeup artist in film. And we had basically said, hey, we'll write this and you can come on board and we'll make all this cool stuff and it'll be awesome, right? And she's like, yeah, awesome. And then we booked the house and then we started writing the script because if we didn't have a deadline, we would never finish writing a script. That's just how we work. And we started making it. And in between that time, our friend got her first head of department job in a TV series, like a legitimate job. And suddenly she was now no longer available for the entire thing. And we had written in all of these quite specific,
which you need. You do need them.
Like, oh, but we had written the whole thing around the prosthetics. So she made a bunch of appliances and gave them to us.
Mm-hmm.
And another person we were introduced to made some prosthetic pieces, a couple of body pieces that we would need, and also helped out silicone pouring some of the little creatures that we needed.
Yep.
And then we found through some university students that had been shooting short films, a makeup artist that lived near the area that we were shooting, who said she was available to come over just for a day, just to apply the prosthetic makeup pieces to people's skin, because that's something we didn't know how to do.
Yeah.
So she was there for that day applying the makeup effects made by two of our other friends, and then the rest of it was just all of us throwing blood and spitting blood at people and making like jelly and random concoctions in the microwave and seeing what worked and just throwing it at each other. Yeah.
And it worked. So yeah, a big thank you to the team involved doing the prosthetics
I
and the
think
makeup.
the makeup
it worked.
department is the biggest department of the film.
Yeah.
Even though like really only one person was down there for one day, it was the biggest amount of preparation and forethought went into that. Yeah.
And what is the plan for? Because distribution can be a wonderful thing to try and seek out. So what has there been any distribution deals, or basically where can people who aren't fortunate like me to be able to watch it at Grimmfest or other festivals be able to watch the film, or is that still in
It's
the,
still
in the stages?
very, very early stages. I didn't think it would get as far as it has, but we have I have been contacted by some distribution company in the US, but that's still early days. So I'm trying to work through that. The problem with doing a film just by yourself for your friends is suddenly these companies expect all of this official like music cue lists and cast and crew contracts and what dividends and stuff do they need and the rights and all this stuff that like, well, we don't have any of that.
No.
So I need to start making up a bunch of this stuff and learning the more technical side of this is where I need a producer basically.
Yes.
This is what a producer needs to deal with. So I'm slowly learning this stuff and hopefully someone else will be able to deal with this on the next one.
I'm sure though, but watching An Ideal Host, it's a charming, funny. There's horror stuff in there, so that'll keep the horror. It's a perfect film. It's such a good way. I'm starting my night job in about 10 hours, and then I'm working 11 hours through the night. So that was literally, I got up, grabbed a glass of orange juice, sat down, watched the film. Great start to my day. So it's all downhill from here afterwards. It's you know, but it's a lot of fun.
I'm really glad to hear it. I'm glad that it resonated with you. We just really just wanted to make a film that we would enjoy, and we really love films that that have a fast pace, that keep moving and keep you guessing, and that's basically what we set out to do. So if that's what's come out, then that's great.
It is great.
Worked.
The work you've done is great. All 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 job titles that you've done is great. Pass my thanks along to the whole cast because they're absolutely amazing. Where can people find out more about the film? Have you got a social media account or a website or anything like that?
Yeah, we're on Facebook. I believe it's just Facebook/An Ideal Host.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just running it now. Just posting.
I knew you were going to say you were running it. I don't know why, but I thought that was probably going to be the answer you may come up with. So,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, so I've just been posting things on there, and when news about the film comes out or it's coming to different festivals, I'll just be updating it there and sharing news there.
Do you use Twitter at all, or are you more just Facebook?
I'm just on Facebook. My writer's on Twitter, but I never got into it. So
you should do. It's one of the best networking tools ever. It does. I mean, Facebook's probably the second one, but Twitter is it's a wealth of information and whatnot. So that would be my tip. Get yourself a Twitter account.
Right.
So have you done a bunch of these interviews, or am I the first of a few, or?
This is the second
Okay.
Of today, and I have done one of these with the local Perth festival. We did an interview for that, so yeah, still learning the ropes, but it's been really fun.
How do you find them? Do you find them a little bit surreal because you're a film director now, you're a movie maker, you've done it,
right? Yeah. Normally I have I bring Tyler, my writing partner, over to bounce off of. It's much nicer when there's two people there to field questions, and one will take off where the other leaves off whenever there's any awkward silences. But it's fine. It's been good. I'm always happy to just talk about the film. So yeah, because we did shoot it a while back, so it's nice to finally have.
You're releasing the child into the world now. You go right now. Go get your own house while I make a new film. So you're right. Though people will be watching you, going, "What are you doing next?" Because film fans like me are very impatient. We're patient, but we're impatient. We're like, "I know you spent ages shooting this, and it was low budget, and there was lots of challenges, but we loved it. So go make another one. Let me know when it's out. I'll message you tomorrow. You can send it me. You know, that sort of thing."
Well, honestly, we only finished. I sent a rough cut into the Perth Festival just to meet the deadline for this year's festival, and when they accepted the rough cut, it was the kick in the ass that we needed to kind of say, oh, okay, we really need to finish this off now. We need to get the sound and music done and finish up the effects. So it was only really finished and finalized 2 months ago, and that was 2 or 3 weeks before the Perth Festival happened. So it's only been finished, really actually completed for a little while, and I know my sound team were anxious to get back into it and fix a whole bunch of things they didn't have time to do. It was like, it's too bad, it's too late, it's done.
Yeah.
Just let it out. We're only now just catching a breath and sitting down and going, all right, what's the next project? We're literally this weekend. That was the plan.
I think for a little while though, I'd advise just sitting down and just enjoying the fact of all the work you've done. It's out there. People are watching it. People are loving the film and having a really good time watching it. So just bask in, reward yourself with a little bit of a rest, and then go make a second film because I want to watch it.
For sure, yeah. We will. There's so many films we need to catch up on as well. So I'm about to see New Mutants in an hour. So
wow, there is a film that's taken its time to come out, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, many years. So
yep.
It's in Western Australia where we are. The cinemas have been open since July.
Oh wow!
And we don't have many real regulations for wearing masks or anything because we haven't had any cases for many months. So our state lockdown has been pretty great. So I'm very fortunate to be able to get back into the cinema, and I've just been going every opportunity I can, and catching up on a bunch of wonderful films. So been doing that for a while, and I will continue to be doing that.
Nice. Well, enjoy them just as I enjoyed An Ideal Host. Thank you for making it. Thanks to Grimmfest for letting me watch it in advance of their festival, and I will be keeping an eye on you and watching your work. You will probably see me sharing reviews. I'll send you the review when I've done it. It will be a wonderful one, obviously, because I did enjoy the film. And yeah, thank you again. Enjoy New Mutants, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
And, thanks for taking some time out to have a chat with me this morning, Robert. Much appreciated.
No worries. Pleasure.
Okay. You take care and enjoy the rest of your day.
See ya.
Bye.